Dan and Corey here, welcoming you in to Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to a tantalizing rendition of Libservative, intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. Bell the Bodysnatcher on the ones and twos. He, as always, is Corey Walsh.
And he's Dan Griffin.
This is going to be... I'm already a little drunk. I'm just going to get that out there.
You're peeking into the bag.
In the first minute of the show. I'm not that drunk.
That's why I said you're not half in the bag. You're just doing a little peekaboo.
Oh, okay. I thought that was like a puke reference. I'm like, Jesus, how many drinks do you think I had?
You're like, I ain't no lightweight over here.
This is so sippy poo.
I don't even drink to get drunk. It's just to fight off the shakes.
We have to stay woke.
It's been a light week, honest. And you know what's funny is when I first come in and I say things like that, people think I'm joking. I don't know why everybody thinks I'm joking all the time. It actually really kind of was a light week until today, where we had on the second day of school in Georgia, a school shooting. Like, I don't mean to make light of this, but the joke has to be made. Like, are they trying to set, are these school shooters now trying to set world records for who can get the earliest shooting off in a school year? Because it's day number 2.
Yeah, school started 2 days ago.
Is that a morbid joke? Should I cut that out? Should I not have made that joke?
Well, so my second day of school typically was just trying to get a gauge on my teachers and figure out where my classes were. I wasn't worrying about a school shooter, you know.
All kidding aside, it's obviously.
Well, that wasn't a joke. I'm just saying, like, I didn't mean to add more somber to it.
4 dead as of now, 9 in the hospital. I didn't pay enough attention to it today. I just didn't have enough time to get involved.
30 injured.
30 injured. Okay, so Bell's all over it.
Isn't that that's the saddest part, right? Like, we're at this point, like, because like your knee-jerk reaction to try to add humor to it isn't like
you're numb to it.
Evil.
I mean,
you're not a bad person. Like, there's school shooter jokes happening all the time, and you're no different than the millions of other people doing this exact same thing for people who are for or against mass shooting. But the problem that I find with it is the fact that we are numb to this. It is kind of crazy.
It sucks. Like,
Even when it was even proximity doesn't make a difference. Like when the state shit happened, when Oxford happened here in Michigan, it's like, oh, here we go again. How many?
Yeah.
I don't know them. Damn, that sucks. Like,
But
that,
now
I feel
we're
like that's the point where, and it's I don't think I'm being apathetic. I don't think I'm being callous. It's at that point now when a school shooting happens, you check on your friends, you check on your family, you make sure no one in your inner circle was affected. And
So
then you send out and if you're on the right wing, you send out your thoughts and prayers. If you're on the left wing, you hurry up and make a post about how this needs to change.
Guns are bad.
And then the next day,
Bell
even after the post,
Bell threw out some updated numbers. In the private chat here, 9 hospitalized, 8 students and a teacher, and 20 people have been released with, I'm assuming, minor injuries. Bell, is that what that means? 2 teachers killed and minor injuries. Yeah. So
the death toll is up to 8.
So this is so 2 teachers, 2 students dead. So 4 dead as of now. The fact that we're sitting here, like, you want to hear a morbid joke? I'll give you one right now. Like, next year on the first day of school, like, are we going to be starting to take over under bets now on how many days into the school year before there's a shooting.
Right, and that's not even a morbid joke. It's just a reflection of society because that's just it. It's like how long until there is over-unders on this type of shit. It's absolutely insane, and nobody is doing shit about it. Everyone virtue signals online. No one's checking in on their like. I'm sure there's still like a lot of people in their individual lives checking in and doing mental health checks on each other. But as a collective, obviously, as a society, we're failing. We keep looking up to a government that we all know is fucking incompetent. Like, oh, you got to do something. Just
David
do something.
Hogg didn't
Pick up the
hesitate.
children. No, obviously not. That's how he makes his bread and butter.
But
you know what I mean? But then in the day ins and
Corey,
day outs,
nobody
no one
loves
does shit.
nobody loves a school shooting more than David Hogg.
Right.
As much as he virtue signals about how, guns are bad and school shootings.
And even the flip side, let's give him the benefit of a doubt.
But wait a minute, okay, and I'll let you give him the benefit of the doubt after I say this. Where would David Hogg be without school shootings?
Right, that's how he made his career and stuff.
Who would he be?
But then on the other end, maybe we are talking about someone who kind of feels how I am talking about it right now, right? Just disgusted. It's just, I can't believe this is happening again. And then he's just going down one road out of a fear tactic because he literally saw like fucking classmates get their heads. Well, no, he wasn't even there, right?
Who's that?
David Hogg. Was he there that day?
He was there. He was at Parkland, but he was nowhere near where the shooting took place, from what I understand.
Downplay whether or not classmates next to him got shot because he probably had to be even if he didn't even see blood, he still had to go through the motions of running out of the classroom with your book bag over your head and the cops rushing you going go go go. You know what I mean? Like I feel like what he went through was traumatizing, and
probably
here he is obviously one of the biggest spokesperson about the gun debate. To the point where we brought him up on the show. Did any representatives even make any posts other than the same generic fucking thoughts and prayers or guns need to be taken away kind of shit? Here he is, one of the biggest spokesperson, and he's like, what the fuck do we do? Like, he's in the same shoes I'm in. Like, what the fuck? Like,
no, that's not what he says, though. What he always says is, why do we act like there's nothing we can do about this? And it's like, David, there are plenty of things. There is something we could do tomorrow. Tomorrow. Yeah. You know what that is? There's something we could have done yesterday. You know what that is? Stop creating soft targets like fucking schools. Yeah. That's something that could be done tomorrow.
Yeah. You don't see mass shootings
right away
in inner city schools. Now, all around it, there might be, but you don't really see them in inner city schools because they, unfortunately, realize their school is a soft target and they nixed it decades ago. It sucks that it was more crime in the surrounding areas.
That was a bad
joke. No, you're fine. No, it's all it does is it's just really like maybe I'm okay with it because it's proven my point more that we're fucking numb to this as a society. My wife's a teacher. We haven't even talked about it yet, and we both probably have known about it since lunch because it just always fucking happens. It's like at this point, it's a car accident. It's like, oh fuck, there was a 3-car pileup, 2 people died. Oh damn! I'll make sure to stop at the stoplight. Yeah, you know what I mean. That's the thing, because this is a fucking tragedy. The most innocent people in our society are in fact being targeted and killed. And
it always sparks the same debate.
Because the debate is up as a distraction because it's all garnered for votes, man. Like if we honestly really took mental health and made it as much of an issue at 1/10 of the energy of the climate crisis or abortion, there would be legislation. Shit would be done. And I'm not even advocating taking guns away.
Climate crisis. The climate crisis might even go away, and abortion wouldn't be as big of an issue if we just dealt with mental health first.
You're right, because mental health is the biggest issue because the biggest climate activators are trying to destroy dams and
it's
pull levers on a gas or like an oil pipeline that goes under my Mackinac Straits, your Mackinac Straits here in Michigan. They think they're doing the good by just got to stop the oil flow. So let me just create a bunch of back pressure on this pipe that goes under one of the biggest bodies of water. What could possibly go wrong? It's, yeah,
Kaboom.
you know, people like that might actually be able to get the care that they need if mental health was actually focused on. There's a lot of things that happen in our country. But here's the thing. No one actually wants to deal with those issues because they're complex. Because for every one person that acts out and does a mass shooting and it affects people, or all of a sudden it's like, oh, this affects my bubble. And they say, oh, we got to stop this right away. And it just sounds like the easiest course of action is just taking away inanimate objects. They don't think about how, because for like every one mass shooting, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, maybe even tens of thousands. You have to do the statistics based on the mass shootings that happen every year versus suicides. Attempted, you'd say attempted because we would include an attempted mass shooting in that group. So you would include attempted suicides. That when it's those attempted suicides, for, like I said, for every 1 to 10 ratio, whatever I made up, we're talking about a lot of people causing damage just to themselves. But when someone shoots themselves in their house, it's like, oh, that's sad, but didn't affect my day-to-day living, didn't affect my anxiety, it didn't affect my fears that keep me up at night when I go to sleep, but didn't make me think about any course of action that it would affect me personally. So they're able to move on with their lives. But when it's something that rocks your boat that you're trying to keep steady in this chaotic world, all of a sudden it's, take the guns away. And if we actually showed a little bit of empathy and actually took care of people when they were on their normal days of being down, we would probably be avoiding most of these mass shootings in the first place.
And Abigail Shrier in her I think it's her newest book.
If that makes sense what I'm saying, yeah.
It does, but just to kind of piggyback on that, Abigail Shrier makes basically her entire newest book. I forget what it's called, so I do apologize for not having the title because I do recommend everybody read it. I read it, and a lot of it is about therapy. I think it's called Bad Therapy, if I'm not mistaken. Now that I'm thinking it through, and about how the last couple of generations have actually been over therapied, and that's kind of brought us to this point where mental health and mental illness is kind of this it's like kind of cool to be mentally ill, if that makes sense. If you're not mentally ill, you're kind of the outcast. You're the weirdo if you're not mentally ill, if you're just kind of normal. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that especially Gen X has been I don't know if this is a word, but I'm going to use it anyway, over therapied to the point where now they're thinking that their kids need to be in that spot. And luckily our generation, the millennials, the Gen Z, the older Gen Zers are kind of starting to see the effects of basically for-profit therapy taking advantage of us for our money. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. It's another treatment. It's just like any other medical treatment where like a little bit of it is good, but when you over-treat something, the medicine becomes more poisonous than the disease. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Therapy's no different. And it's a fantastic book. Obviously, Abigail's not a sponsor of our show or anything like that, but she's written a couple of really good books on these things, and she's not an expert in any way, just like us. She's just a curious person.
Yeah,
like
therapy.
we are, so.
It's. I'm formulating these thoughts in my head as we're talking about it, right? But it being like new, right? People actually going to a therapist and stuff. Like you're hearing it, especially for me, like in the last like 5.
God, every podcast has a BetterHelp commercial. Every podcast has a BetterHelp.
So yeah, it's being commercial. So now the stigma is gone. It was still new, like when we were growing up, I feel like for the most part, but like now the stigma is gone to where it's like openly be able to be talked about. Because I feel like in the last like 5-10 years of my life, as being someone who my parents, loaded me up in the car and took me to a family therapy when I was younger. I never seen a therapist when I was older. Maybe I should. It'd be nice to just talk and have no one interrupt me, Dan. And no, I'm just kidding.
Fuck you, I'm out of here.
and I feel like more now than ever, people are like, yeah, I'm going to see a counselor. Yeah, so I was talking to my therapist, and people say these things, but it's still new. So I don't know if people know how to deal with it, taking it from that sanitized environment into the real world, because now everyone gets to talk about their feelings. But in the therapy sessions, the people talk about their feelings, and then you have a psychiatrist that goes, no, those are valid feelings. Like, absolutely. And like, you're allowed to feel that way, and like with good intentions. But then they go out into the fucking world and build a relationship with a random stranger, and they share their feelings as they should. But then that person doesn't agree with them, and they don't know how to deal with that part, because that part doesn't happen in therapy. All of a sudden they're like, well, I feel like this way, and these are my boundaries. And someone's like, well, those are infringing on my boundaries. Yeah. And they're like, wait, you can't make me feel that way. I told you how I want you to make me feel. Yeah, well, my therapist says I'm supposed to feel this way. And so like, I feel like that's what we're dealing with right now.
Well, it's a lot of like what we talk about with regards to the pharmaceutical industry and others, which is that it doesn't make good financial sense,
right?
If I'm a therapist, to cure you. It makes a lot better financial sense to keep you coming back and sitting in my chair and paying me for session after session after session after. And that's not to say that every therapist is like that. I'm sure there are good therapists out there.
What this sounds like to me is you're arguing against the free market of capitalism.
No, I'm not at all. Absolutely.
No, I'm just teasing. I was gonna say that's what I was actually gonna go something along that line before you started talking about that.
Capitalism is remarkably dishonest, and it has its flaws. We talk about this all the time.
That's the part I was gonna bring up. There should be, if we're gonna be honest about like enjoying capitalism, there should be a 8x12 sheet of paper, double-sided, in like 8 font, with all the disclaimers of the negatives to capitalism.
Well,
because
no, but
when we talk about being capitalist,
Corey, though, as it pertains to capitalism, yeah, a therapist has the capitalistic right. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but I just made it up because I'm a little drunk. The capitalistic right to sit there and try to keep you in his chair. But I, as a free market of ideas guy, have the right to sit there and tell you that your fucking therapist is taking advantage of you and you shouldn't go there anymore. It works both ways.
It does.
Anyway,
it's just, buyer beware. It should just be on every single thing, every idea implanted in your head, every story, everything. For example, there's this story that's in Aurora, Colorado. Did you guys hear about the Venezuelan gang thing?
Why does Aurora always keep coming up? Isn't that where the big theater shooting was at the Dark Knight?
I think so.
I think it's because everybody's moving out there right now. Like, that's been like the hot spot to move for like the past 10 years. So I think they're just getting all kinds of new people, and
it's slowing down though because it's just too liberal.
Yeah.
Colorado.
Well, did you hear about the apartment complex with the Venezuelan gangs?
Yeah,
it was like a whole viral thing.
They like squatted in an apartment
complex.
Even
the mayor says they're making a task force and stuff. Well, now stories are starting to come out about how the residents of that neighborhood are like, well, it's super neglected, and it's hard to habitate because the landlords neglect the place. And yeah, there's gang activity, but there's no gangs taking over the building. And so all of a sudden now, like, the narrative is shifting. Yeah, because I'm bringing this up because Steve the Serb, the listener to the show, sent me an article at first saying it's fake, and we talked it out. And I was like, well, like, there are videos, and he's like, well, those could be from anywhere. And it's like, that's true, but I'm talking like USA Today, people walking up to the building with their phone and showing the shit. Like, there's videos of this stuff. And I'm like, it's weird. And I'm like, and then I was like, and then think about whenever it's something like this, how like the mayor was coming out and saying that this is unacceptable, and they're making a task force to look at it. And there's gangs there, but now everyone's coming out going, well, there wasn't like a gang inhabited the place. It was just the gangs around. But now the narrative's starting to spin where it's about how the place wasn't habitable. The landlords neglected the place. They're from out of town. There's a term out of town landlords being thrown around. And now the mayor's talking about shutting the whole complex down, meaning kicking everyone out. So now
how does Michael
we're
Malice
talking
feel
about
this?
I don't know.
That's my question.
So now we're talking about an apartment complex in a city that Bell just said everyone's moving out there like gangbusters.
No
You
pun
want the
intended.
space. Right. You want the space to build new apartments. Okay. If it's only
with you.
if
I'm
it's
following.
only if there's only a limited amount of space because there's mountains, gentrification, right? This mayor spun this whole thing and went from like, yeah, we're gonna try to get these gangs out of here to now, well, we're gonna shut apartments down, but there wasn't gangs. You don't want to damage the image of the city. Remember, we had a big conversation about that with the guy from Kalamazoo.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, well, no, there's no Venezuelan gangs here. And now, obviously,
Like,
I should have caveated before all of this.
There's no pollution in Kalamazoo.
I should have caveated before all of this to put your tinfoil hats on, boys. Right?
Nope.
But it's something that's fishy because originally I was going off on this talking about how when you first hear something and then there's news combating it, like you need to be able to reevaluate your opinion on it. You know, what's that saying? Like, as the facts change, my opinions change. Pray tell, what do you do? I think I did get bamboozled a little bit because USA Today and all these different like major news media outlets were talking about how a Venezuelan gang took over this apartment complex. So I bought the bait. But now apparently that's not the story anymore. And what I originally was going to say was like, that's why you should never jump the gun in any story and anything, because we were talking about that a tiny bit there before I went off on this tangent. But yeah, I guess just question everything.
We have to stay woke.
I should have questioned that story when it first came out. And then that's what I guess what I was leading to without saying is we start questioning everything about it. Because now we got to do a deep dive on this mayor to see who he's affiliated with and keep an eye on this land like you do in Hawaii. That just got these poor homeowners had their house torched and now the property is being like resold and all that shit. And it's a giant land grab happening there. And
I really don't know what he
is
said.
this about, is this another land grab?
I don't think he knows what he said either.
Try to keep up, Dan.
Nobody's ever been hit like that.
Is this a land grab? Is it a Venezuelan gang? Is it just media PR stunts because there's an election happening?
Is it just a run-of-the-mill whorehouse? We'll never know.
Is it just a regular old trap house? Because shitty apartment complexes have been taken over by gangs for decades. Have you ever seen The Wire?
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know?
I don't know, Kamala. That has nothing to do with this conversation. I'm talking about the show The Wire from HBO, talking about how they would take the projects and turn them into trap houses. If anyone, like, it's not politically correct to use the term projects, but a shitty rundown apartment that's neglected by the landlords is no different than a shitty rundown apartment neglected by the government. And gangs have taken over complexes before. That's not new news, but the difference is these ones are illegals. And the border crisis right now is a big fucking take at the, because it's the election year. So I don't know. This story is weird.
Did you watch Kamala's interview, or do you want to?
You mean Kamala and Tim Walz, because Kamala couldn't go by herself apparently.
Kamala and as I don't remember if it was Nick Gillespie or Catherine Maggie Ward, but it was one of those two, and they're very different people. As Tim Walz was referred to as Kamala Harris's emotional support human, which I think is just brilliant because that's exactly what he is.
Dan, you can't say that with confidence.
Boy, I hope he's
they've only had one fucking interview. Now, if he shows up for the second interview or the third interview, yeah, I'll agree with that joke. But
boy, I hope he's qualified.
This Colorado fucking thing. Yeah, who the emotional support human? You hope he's qualified.
Did you watch this interview, right? We didn't. Nobody learned anything this week. I guess we're gonna get to this. We're gonna get to things learned at the end because I don't have anything. I don't know if Bell does. I know Corey does. But it leads into something else, so we'll go from there. You did watch the Dana Bash selected interview of Kamala Harris. Very selective, about 40-something minutes, and they only showed about 19 of it, and I could only watch myself about 13 minutes of it.
I watched the whole thing because it felt like it just got started, and then it was cut off. Because I think I texted you guys, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm watching it, and we're bullshitting about it, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm listening to it, and I'm watching it, and in the commercials, I'm playing on my phone, and when I could hear, like, the commenters talking, I wouldn't pay attention, because I can give two shits what they say. I'm sitting there just playing on my phone, probably just some bullshit, like, fucking, what's the one I've been playing a lot lately? Like, domination games, taking over territory and stuff. Just sitting there fucking playing my game, and I'm looking up, and I see them talking. And then like 20 minutes went by, and I think I texted you guys. I was like, wait, was that fucking it?
Yeah. So it was basically, it seemed like an interview that was completely staged, that was written in a way that looked like it wasn't supposed to look like it was staged. That's what it was to me. It was basically, I mean, it was Kamala Harris being Kamala Harris, basically talking a little bit in circles. And there's a reason that they've essentially cut it in half. It was just awful. It was awful in every single way. And I will say this. I think Kamala Harris did one really good thing in that interview. Like, this was the thing that was like, all right, she nailed that part, which in a 40 fucking something minute interview that only aired 20 minutes, you'd think there would be more than one. What's so funny is, like, none of our podcast listeners are going to know.
Oh, yeah. How different are Trump and Harris? How different are Trump and Harris?
Because now, what people perhaps had never seen before can be seen to know what's possible.
That's Old Top.
We just shut the fuck up and read Old Top's thing in silence. That's all that just happened.
Well, at first, then I stayed quiet because I was just watching your reaction because I put it up and I saw you lose your train of thought to start watching it.
The only thing that Kamala Harris did well in that 40-something minute interview that actually turned out to be like 20 minutes because they had to cut it down because she didn't say anything of substance. She did one thing well. When Dana Bash asked her about Trump's response to, or Trump's attacking her, I don't even know how to phrase this, but Trump essentially talking about her race, right? Whether or not she's black, whether or not she's Indian. And Kamala Harris just basically goes, typical, next question.
Yep.
Honestly, dude, that was the one spot that she nailed because she didn't fucking buy in. She didn't buy into the fucking race politics bullshit, which that's the only thing throughout that entire interview that I'm going to give her credit for.
Yeah.
She got that part right.
Whether you think, like, if you're pro Kamala, whether you think the race,
nobody's pro Kamala. Anybody who's pro Kamala is actually just anti-Trump. We know this.
Sure. But whether you buy into it or not, if you buy into it, you're already voting for her anyways.
I didn't know she was black.
You already know that she cares about that. What you saw her do was try to placate to people who are on the fence about her. Because there's people that are going to be out there who might be moderate Democrats who are tired of, who aren't legitimately racist, but just don't want to hear about racism. And it could be a point of privilege. It could not be.
Who are these?
There's people.
Are these like
just
are these
moderates
like
out there?
Are these like 65-year-old white people that have traditionally voted Democrat but don't know what the hell to do now?
Sure. Or a moderate Republican who doesn't like the culture.
Well, I voted for that colored boy back in 2008. I think I'll vote for this colored girl too.
I might as well. In my black and white TV, she contrasts better and I can see her. But what I was saying is she was placating to people who are just over everyone arguing about that shit and want to hear more kitchen table shit that benefits everybody. You know what I mean? And I'm
No, I
agreeing with
understand what
you.
you're
Yeah,
saying.
I'm agreeing with you.
But
That was
Corey,
You have to stay
a
woke.
fifth to people.
that's right.
Well, it depends on who she's with, where she says these things. But on a CNN interview, like hey, Belle, real quick, look up the demographic of people who watch CNN at 9 p.m.
Bell will find it.
Yeah, he'll find that.
absolutely find it.
And that's what she was placating to, because she's got to get everyone. People in the Midwest aren't New York or California. The identity politics stuffs and the protests in the streets and Antifa, that shit doesn't really happen here. We had protests when we had a few protests, a couple good ones when during the whole George Floyd was killed. Yeah. But Michigan was one of the only states that didn't have windows get smashed in. You know what I mean? Like we went through that already. And in states like ours,
There's some stuff downtown, like I think in downtown Detroit, like I think the Nike store got smashed in a little bit, but nothing was lit on fire.
No, it didn't.
I think it did. In downtown, I believe it did.
Okay, Belle, look that up next, because
I could be wrong.
I remember watching the live stream and thinking, "Don't do it."
Either way, my point was this: even whether or not the Nike store got smashed in is completely irrelevant to the point that I'm making. If it did happen, like that was the worst of it, is essentially what I'm saying.
I did see a cop window get smashed out, which I was like, okay.
Fuck the police.
I think it's a very rude introduction.
But yeah, and like, so these are the states up for grabs, right? Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. And then what's the other one? There's one more.
I mean,
Georgia?
there's Arizona.
Georgia's in the wings. Arizona.
There's
Democrats
Arizona.
give up on Arizona.
Nevada's only 6. Well, they didn't, because Carrie Lake ran for governor in Arizona, and she's a fucking nut job and lost.
Yeah.
So it wasn't completely given up on. Nevada's only 6 electoral points, which honestly would matter.
Was Carrie Lake propped up by the Dems? Remember how there was a lot of crazy Dems donations from Democrats? A lot of crazy Republicans who were getting donations from Democrats?
She might have been, but she's one of those Trumpy Trumps that aren't Trump and got fucking obliterated. She didn't get obliterated. That's not true. She didn't lose by that much, but she lost. They all lose. Every one of them lost, except for JD Vance. That was it.
All right. This is a doozy. Old people watch Fox News. Younger people tend to watch CNN. CNN has a more widespread demographic. Fox News has more viewers, but CNN has a bigger demographic.
I think I know why that is. I'm going to tell you exactly why that is. Because there are people on the left, there are Democrats that are a wide swath that will watch cable news, but I think the younger people on the right are more hyper online. So like the old right-wingers are still watching Fox News.
Yes.
But the younger right-wingers are watching fucking Tim Pool and Patrick Bet-David.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that explains.
And that's interesting to talk about too, like on a society level, because there might be a disconnect with that. Like old people seem to think the Republicans are something that they're not, because they're not seeing their younger counterparts being absolute fucking incel assholes on the internet. Right. And then they're like, why do Democrats hate Republicans so much? It's like, that's why you just don't see it. You think the edgy person out there is Jesse Waters.
Oh, God.
Or Gutfeld at night.
Good Lord.
Honestly, I kind of like Gutfeld. I think he's funny.
It's like a talk show, right? Like it's more set up like a late night talk show.
Yeah, it's Gutfeld's funny. He's I don't know. I don't really know how to explain him. He's just funny. I catch him every once in a while.
That's exactly probably how you'd explain him. I bet you if I said that, no one would be mad about it. except for him, maybe.
Yeah, no, well, that's
or people who take him like more serious than he does himself.
No, he's cornered a market. He is a comedian and he is funny. And I don't know who his joke writers are, but he himself might not even be that funny. I'm sure he has joke writers that work for him, but he's kind of a breath of fresh air from the Colberts. You know, he's basically just like right wing.
That's what they're
Stephen
probably
Colbert.
trying to mimic, though. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, and it's working.
A late night talk show host,
and it's working because he's got the best ratings of everybody out there. Do you ever watch his show? I catch him once in a while.
I caught it. I think 2 or 3 times. I haven't really watched it.
It's pretty.
I feel like if it's a show that I don't like. Me, I laugh a lot at CNN, Fox News, MSNBC because I just don't take it seriously. I don't let them like try to make me.
Oh, it's
angry.
hilarious.
I know
Dude.
it's all for show.
If you go into it thinking it's going to be funny, every single one of those shows is hilarious. Hannity cracks me the fuck up, and he's trying to be serious. Yes. Rachel Maddow makes me fucking flip my chair laughing at her ass.
At least Gutfeld is kind of like he knows that the jig is up.
Funny.
Yeah, he knows the jig is up. So you might as well play into it.
So what are the similarities and differences between these policies? Because we're like 36 minutes in.
What, do you got to piss already? We didn't even do things learned.
We're going to do that later, or did you need that to lead into this?
No, I don't need that to lead into this one. It was for a different one. All right, we'll do this right. All right, I'll be the producer tonight. You sit back, Dan, and enjoy your drinks.
All right, I got to piss. Fuck you.
All right, you go take a piss. So how different are Trump and Harris really? So I found this interesting article from News Nation, no other, where Chris Cuomo was over there just rummaging about through people's lockers. I made that up. I don't know why. Trump. So this article is Trump and Harris and where they stand on issues that matter to voters. So I figured this is important to bring up since we're supposed to be a political show. I figured we could talk about the policies of each of them as they stand according to News Nation. I picked this article because everything in nice little bullet points. So the first topic we're going to talk about is abortion. So we kind of know where the two stand on the main like message of abortion, pro, anti. But these are just bullet points for everything. So for Trump is the former President Trump wouldn't initially say during a town hall whether he supports a federal abortion ban. But I feel like that's dated because there's a lot of shit that happened recently with him. Yeah, this isn't.
I'm back.
Okay. So the first one was whether he was for or against an abortion ban. But that one sounds like and YouTube is really letting me down on just figuring out when this stupid fucking it's not a year ago article. Because since then we've seen him come out with a lot of bullshit about abortions. But that actually no, it doesn't matter if it's dated because that's basically where you think he would stand right now if he's not.
Well, and now he's at this place where he's like, we want more babies in America. We love babies. Babies are great. I support IVF. In fact, didn't he just come out and
government-funded IVF?
Government-funded IVF. What an asshole.
And then in
April of 24, he said on his social media platform, Truth Social, that it'd be best if the states handled abortion the way their constituents want. Which, shit in one hand, piss in the other. That's the one I'll take. At least let the states handle it than just letting government itself be hands off or hands on.
I'm bringing you back. Bella, bringing you back in. What were you going to say?
Okay, so talking about the ban in Florida earlier and saying that he would not.
Yeah, he's saying he wouldn't vote for an abortion ban in Florida because it was too extreme.
He would.
Oh, now he's saying he would. It flipped back.
So,
boy, being a populist must be tough about it around a situation that's like a 50-50.
Because he's not a real populist. He doesn't know what is actually popular. He just fucking flaps in the breeze like an old woman's labia. That's what this man does.
Yeah, Trump to vote against Florida abortion measure that would protect abortion rights.
Yeah.
So now he's saying he's
He
going to
will
vote against it. Because
Yeah.
before he was saying he was going to vote for it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell's going on.
Do you think he's going to be like a lot of Trump supporters themselves who are not
Donald
like
Trump is a
Trump
bad guy. He's a bad person.
people who pretend to hate Trump but like voted for him?
You think those people are out there?
Oh, well, obviously he won the first time. All the polls, like, so I heard this thing about, I guess, like the polls in 2016. They didn't count like calls when they would be like, "Hi, this is so and so from such and such doing a poll on who you're gonna vote for," and then someone goes, "Fuck off, Trump," and then hung up, or like, "Fuck you, I'm voting for Trump."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. There was a lot of that.
calls like that.
They didn't count those. They didn't count
those, but now they're counting them. Like they're not gonna obviously they don't like all the other answers are just like no answer, but like the actual thing of whether or not they're for Trump. If someone says "fuck off, Trump," probably count that as a yes that they're gonna go out there and vote for Trump. And I forget where I was going with that.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But
What?
but like if the polls are going all over the place about this shit, then he's gonna follow the polls.
They're cheating. They're crooked. They're corrupt.
But he also said on Truth Social that he strongly supports fertility treatments and that he has never and will never advocate restricting birth control or other contraceptives.
So that's one of the things that Trump, from a strategic perspective, because like I go back and forth. It's so interesting. I've never done this with any other politician in the history of since knowing politicians and what they're all about. I could probably even go back into history and never do this, which is I go back and forth on how with it Trump is versus how not with it he is. And it can switch on a dime. It can switch from day to day. And Trump is, when it comes to things like, what was the last thing you just said? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That he will never advocate for restricting birth control or contraceptives.
Right. Okay. So that's where I was going to go with this. One of the things that he does so well is obviously, if you're a Republican, you should understand that you have the pro-life vote like all day long. You should have, other than like a few libertarians that are out there that are weirdly pro-life, and there's like this, there's this weird convoluted thing, but you should assume that you have that vote. And he understands that because he knows that the pro-life people, they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris. Right. So why wouldn't you come more to the middle on something like abortion where you have a chance to get a few of those middling normies in?
Well, yeah, it's just like the defund the police crowd isn't going to vote for Trump. They're going to vote for a cop.
That's where he's right. That's so fucking weird. But that's one of those things that he does where I go, okay, that's a really brilliant political move by Trump. But then he goes
just like with Harris actually coming down on the border, because where are the people on the left going to go?
No, that's absolutely fair. Like the people that are like quote unquote open borders, which honestly, dude, I don't think there's that many of those people out there. It's just that people don't really understand border policy and that you need high fences and wide gates.
And if they don't know about it, you're right. And if they don't know about it, then it's obviously you stick to your morals and be like, well, yeah, people shouldn't be treated like animals. And that's why it's fair. It's just like a lot of times when someone says it, it's like, yeah, but what's your problem on fixing this for the huge immigration crisis? Like, do you get them all? Let's say you let them all in tomorrow.
Yeah.
What's
now?
Next? What about the infrastructure? What about this? Like, yeah, like there should be you're gonna let them all work. Okay, now we're talking. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah, dude. It's the concept of high fences and wide gates, and nobody wants to have that discussion. I honestly don't think, like, just as a layman, I really don't think immigration is that hard. I really don't. At least, I mean, I'm sure it's complicated as far as like from like a logistical perspective, but I don't think it's that complicated from an overall policy perspective. High fences, like what is Trump's wall? That's the high fence. What is what we think, which is honestly more of a libertarian perspective, which is that we actually need more people because we're not having enough babies. That's the wide gates part of it.
Right.
It's not about not vetting anybody. It's not about like just allowing people to jump over the border willy-nilly and run wherever the hell they want. It's just about figure out the most efficient way to get more good people into the country, whether they're skilled or unskilled. It honestly doesn't matter at this point. We need more laborers, and we need everything else.
And be selfish
Not
about
that
it.
hard.
You don't have to be selfish about it, about the whole bullshit with welfare and stuff like that. You do it like this. It's like, if the government's allowed to know where I am at every single second in my country when I'm a natural born citizen paying taxes, they should know where you are too.
Well, and it's like the whole sanctuary cities thing, right? Where you're just throwing migrants into, and you're just paying for them to live somewhere that could be a nice hotel for me to go stay on a nice vacation that I want to take to New York City. Like, I don't support that shit either. How do you solve that problem? You solve that problem, again, through high fences and wide gates. You bring people in, you vet them, and then what do you do, Corey? Novel concept here. It's really strange. You ready for this? Let them find fucking jobs. Because the problem that we have now is not now. Obviously, we talked about this a few weeks ago about how, like, since the election's coming up, the Biden administration / Harris administration is actually doing a far better job at the border than they were 4 months prior. Gee, I can't imagine why they would be doing that. But it's not. The problem is all of the people that were coming in and just being sent to wherever they wanted to go. Hey, where do you want to go? Let's go here. Let's go there. They're able to go there, but they're not allowed to work. So I cannot imagine what problems would come from that scenario. You have to house them when you could just make it easier for them to work. That's
right. Yeah, because let's be honest, someone who walks 3,000-4,000 miles through the desert isn't a slouch.
Right. Yeah. There's tons of labor jobs. I mean, that's what's so funny about, like, in areas like where we are, especially in the rural parts of Detroit. If you go, 45 minutes north of Detroit, it's relatively rural up there. You don't have to go that far. You don't have to go that far. And what do you do? What's up there? What's up there? I work up there, right? I travel around to stores and take orders and things like that as a sales rep. And I talk to all these people. What do you think? What do you think the common denominator is between these people? A, they all have Trump signs in their yard, which is fine. I really don't give a shit who you vote for. Honestly, I don't. But the other common denominator is they're rural white folks that want to say things like, nobody wants to work anymore. Well, I know a bunch of people that are maybe an hour south of here, at 4 hours west, if you want to take a trip to Chicago, that would be happy to come work for you. And by the way, for minimum wage, and they wouldn't complain about it. And they would do a great job.
Yep. They'd bring all their friends and family. They'd rent a 2-bedroom apartment and all get on their feet. And then they'd all branch out and start getting houses.
Honestly, being in the food industry and being a sales rep to a lot of these, like, grocery stores that I go to, I don't really get into a whole lot of my personal life, but this is actually relevant to this. And being a sales rep for a lot of these grocery stores, one of their biggest problems is they can't get enough help. That's one of the biggest issues I have. I can't spend time with a store manager to sell them more product because they just don't have time to talk to me. They have to go stock shelves. They have to go do all these other things. And these are the same people that want to make sure that immigrants aren't allowed to get into this country.
Yeah.
And they don't, it's like, really? I can find you some help if they were allowed to work. Isn't it interesting how that always works out?
Yeah, it's the snake eating its own tail kind of thing.
It's bizarre. Anyway, do we have any other similarities between Trump and Harris? Besides the no taxes on tips thing, which basically Harris.
Well, I thought we were going over their policies now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the policy, is it not?
What?
That's a policy, isn't it? No taxes on tips.
Oh yeah. Now they're both saying they're going to do that. They're both right on that. Yeah, they're both right.
Well,
they're both similar.
Have you heard any like weird pushback on that policy? Because I have. Honestly, dude, I have. I've heard. Here's what I've heard, and maybe you've heard something similar, or maybe not. Well, if they don't get taxed on their tips, why should I get charged on my wage? And I go, yeah, that's a good point. Why should you get taxed on your wage? Because you shouldn't get taxed on your wage. You're slowly becoming a libertarian now. What the hell's a libertarian? Like, oh my God.
Wait till they find out that when you start a business and you have to pay people, you have to get taxed on all the money you like.
It's just like you're the same people that think like libertarians are bad. It's like, no, this is a libertarian perspective. You shouldn't be taxed on your wage. If you're going to have taxes, it's very simple. You should be taxed on what you consume.
So the only argument I saw like being pro for it, and it was very anecdotal evidence. It was someone who must have done like well for themselves. Like I think they were like a hairstylist or something. And they were like, well, I like to report my taxes because then it shows that I have income on paper and it's easier for me to get loans and credit cards and things like that. And it's like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. You could do that. I guess then just report it.
Yeah. I guess you could still just report it. Because you're not being taxed on it, just because you're not being taxed on it doesn't mean you can't report it as income.
Right. Report it. Simple answer. That's one of the only arguments I really heard against it that like made sense. And I was like, all right, then yeah, just report it. No one's telling you not to.
That's
they ask you in your taxes any other unclaimed income. Report it. I don't know if I don't know if you have to keep receipts. I don't think you need to keep every receipt. You tell the government you made $30K in tips, they're gonna be like, okay, just pay taxes on it. They're not gonna be. They're not gonna say prove it.
Why should they not have to be taxed when I have to be taxed? That's the point, bro. You shouldn't have to be taxed on your income. Yeah, I mean, you've heard of the fair tax, right, Corey?
Oh yeah, I'm a proponent for it.
Just you should only be taxed on what you consume. Because it's so funny. They run around and they talk about how you can't be taxed on the same dollar twice.
But you are constantly.
All the time. Well, not necessarily at the federal level because there's no federal sales tax. But you are at the state level. You're taxed on your income and then you're taxed on what you buy. That's taxing the same dollar twice.
I would even go as far as saying like your registration fee for a car. You paid taxes when you bought the car, and then you're paying taxes on it every year.
Every year. That's fair. That's very fair. And every state has that shit.
Yeah. But then again, I guess you're paying for road usage. So, but then you're also paying taxes on your property. And then there's city tax, and then there's state tax.
Well, that's different, Corey, because you only paid tax. You only paid a sales tax on the home that you bought. That doesn't count the property that it's on. It's just the house. It was just the building on top that you paid taxes on when you bought your house. Such bullshit. It's just absolute bullshit.
Yeah, there should be some sort of like leeway that gets, if you maintain it properly, then you're good to go. If your house looks like shit and you have grass everywhere and rats running around, then
that's the sound of my money going into the sewer.
Oh yeah.
Any other ones? Any other similarities? Because that's really all this is just to basically point out that Trump and Harris, at the end of the day, when you take out the rhetoric, when you take out the scare tactics, these two people are just not that much different with regards to how they're going to run this country. And that's why you got to stop being scared.
Well, I mean, I guess Harris blatantly says that she wants to ensure all American women have access to legal abortions.
Okay.
And that it's a fundamental freedom. Yeah, so I get why you're just like, whatever, because like, put your money where your mouth is. We saw the Democrats string this shit along for 70 years and then they lost it.
We have to stay woke.
Using a tactic to get people to vote for them. But
they insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
Her being in the Democratic Party, like when it comes to whether it's government mandated with women having the right to this or a wishy-washy Trump, I have her side on this one. You know what I mean? Like the right, like, you know, we can talk about it as just a concept and be like, oh yeah, it should be at the states, but at the end of the day, pro-choice, pro-life, she wins out on this policy,
which you would expect,
which is 100% you'd expect.
And the other thing is, like, who does she went out with? She went out with the pro-choice people. Like, okay, like, what does that change? She was always going to win that anyway.
All right, so for the border crisis, for Trump, the former president would launch the largest deportation effort in U.S. history, paid for with redirected military funds, which is something Reuters reported.
Your tax dollars.
More of your tax dollars. He would restore his 2019 Remain in Mexico program, which required asylum seekers at the U.S. border to wait in Mexico while their cases are processed. Trump said he would end what he called catch and release and instead detain all migrants who are caught entering the United States without authorization or violating their other immigration laws.
Where are you going to put them?
Yeah, you have just more private prisons, buddy. That's not the most frustrating thing, man. When it comes, let me finish reading to this, and then we can talk about the border crisis. He'd also deputize the U.S. National Guard and local law enforcement to help with rapid deportations.
Oh my God.
The former president said he would enact travel bans denying entry to people in the Gaza Strip, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and anywhere else that threatens our security.
No Iran? Oh, wait, that's already on the list, isn't it?
Yeah. Block communists, Marxists, and socialists from entering the U.S. and send deportation officers to pro-Hamas protests.
What? Who the fuck is this guy? McCarthy, for Christ's sake?
He'd end birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. to undocumented parents, which is like one of the very first things in our Constitution from the beginning.
Yeah, you can't. He won't fucking do that. He can't do that.
And Biden's immigration parole program and roll back temporary protected status designations. Try again to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, commonly referred to as DACA. And while he was president, about 450 miles of barriers were built along the southwest border. Harris, on the other hand, among Republicans, Harris has the ironic moniker of border czar owing to her work wherein she oversaw diplomacy with Mexico and the Northern Triangle as a means of addressing root causes of migration. She's done a bang-up job. Biden gave her the responsibility of manning everything immigration along the southern border in 2021, with her role, according to the White House at the time, to stem the arrival of irregular migrants. As recently as this week at the Republican National Convention, so this was written when the RNC happened.
I'm listening.
As recently as this week, the Republican National Convention, Republicans heavily criticized the Biden-Harris approach to the border, a hot-button issue in selection cycle. Oh, well, no shit. Under the Biden-Harris administration, migrants crossing into the U.S. from Mexico hit record highs at the end of 2023. Close to 250,000 crossed during December 2023, surpassing the previous high of 2024, or 224,000 encounters in May of 2022, also under the Biden-Harris watch. So now this is one that I found interesting. Harris announced in March that $5.2 billion in pledges from private companies had been made to prop up Central American communities to deter illegal entry to the U.S. under her guidance. That is the most libertarian thing I've heard from the Harris administration. She got private companies to fork over $5.2 billion to invest in those countries down there, so that way it stems the illegal entry. The problems, of course, did not occur overnight, and the solutions will not be achieved overnight, said Harris of the border at the time.
Oh my God, I can hear her saying that.
I know.
They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
I guess, I thought I could go through these. I thought about talking about these policies, but it's climate change. Trump claimed he would end the Green New Deal, would free up stores of liquid gold for energy development, speed up approval of natural gas pipelines, exit the Paris Climate Agreement again, fight litigation from environmentalists. Harris has backed the Biden administration's climate initiatives. The clock is not just ticking, it's banging, she said last year, referencing climate change-driven disasters.
The clock is banging? How many clocks have you heard banging?
I mean, other bangs once an hour.
Other than like Flavor Flav in like 2003 when he was banging Brigitte Nielsen in the hot tub on that weird reality show. That's a reference nobody's going to understand. Look it up.
During a 2020 presidential bid, Harris emphasized environmental justice, addressing climate change's effect on poor and minority communities. She's continued this focus as vice president. I hate that shit. But now obviously she's not really talking about race as much anymore. Why can't she just say poor communities?
Because that doesn't stick.
Right, but you might get some Republican
Corey, you
votes.
know as well as I do. You know as well as I do. Poor white people don't matter. They're privileged. You know that.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. If you stop sectioning people off and like why, like a poor community is such a wide swath. Okay.
That, by the way, keeps growing.
Right. That, by the way, keeps growing, and most of the poorest communities are in red states where it's like Appalachia, where it's mostly white people. Why do you have to add minority communities, adding a connotation that if you're a minority and you have a community, you are in the same position as poor people through environmental justice, when you could just say poor people and not equivocate race and divvy it up like that and add minority?
Poor kids are just as vulnerable as white kids.
Poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, that's exactly what this is. The poor and minority communities. I'll tell you what, there are a lot of minority communities and they are not poor.
Corey, it's science. The darker your skin, the hotter the sun feels. So climate change affects minority communities more. Isn't sun attracted to dark colors? It's hotter.
Right. It is science.
If you're darker, it's science. Jesus Christ. I hope nobody isolates me on this one because I will be seen as a racist very soon here.
2019 is Senator Harris. In 2019, as a Senator Harris and Rep AOC from New York proposed, and who doesn't know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez proposed legislation to evaluate environmental rules' impact on low-income communities. It would have created an Office of Climate and Environmental Justice Accountability and Climate Justice Advisors and federal agencies.
AOC, hater policies, but still kind of want to smash.
You said it, folks.
We have to stay woke.
Shut it down. 9:34, September 4th.
I think it's a very rude
He's
introduction.
Harris.
I mean,
so for
Kamala at some point, she was a little bit of a baddie back in the day. You don't bang Montel Williams without being a little bit of a hottie.
You might be right.
Not like AOC though.
So when it comes to crime, Trump says he's going to move homeless encampments out of cities.
How's he going to do that?
I don't know, but he's going to give police more authority, deploy the military to fight the nation's drug problem, and impose the death penalty for convicted drug dealers.
So isn't that what's so great about like when you go and you read a presidential candidate's policies? It's always like Trump's going to do this, and not even Trump. It could be any candidate. Kamala's going to do this, and it's just like, do you not have a basic understanding of like a federal law, but also like states' rights and local law? Where so like when Trump goes, yeah, I'm gonna take all the brown people out of the cities. I'm gonna take all.
I'm gonna move all the homeless out of the cities. We're gonna move out of the cities back to Mexico.
And it's just like there's just no constitutional way where he could do that. But his sycophants will go, well, Trump said he's going to move all the brown people out of here, so we're good. And it's just like, and it's no different than when Kamala's like, what's a good example for her? Because I'm
Her
trying to
$25,000 credit for first-time home buyers.
Yeah, I'm trying to like both sides this thing because it's absolutely a both sides thing. So when Kamala's like, I'm just gonna give
Free Medicare for all.
$25,000 to first-time home buyers. Like maybe constitutionally she could get away with doing that, but then when housing prices go up $25,000 per house, and everybody goes, "How did that happen?" I can't imagine how that might have happened.
See, so when it comes to the housing thing,
maybe because you fucking Hold on. I'm going to tell you exactly about the housing thing, and then you can respond to this, Corey. All she's doing is subsidizing demand. That's all she's doing. She's not subsidizing supply.
They did with college, and just like they do with healthcare.
Fucking Econ 101,
work
you
on
asshole.
The federal level. Now, if states impose things like this where it made sense, I wouldn't be against it. California or New York offering a $25,000 first-time home buyer like initiative doesn't mean shit. Those houses are super fucking expensive. Now, a city like Michigan who's seen depopulation happen.
You mean a state?
I mean a state like Michigan or a city like Detroit who's seen depopulation happen. Detroit could stand to gain from a $25,000 initiative to buy those houses.
I disagree. I'm going to tell you why I disagree. Because there's still, even in areas like ours, which, by the way, Metro Detroit has not seen. I'm sorry if you're from outside Detroit, you don't care, but I'm sure it probably applies to your area as well somehow. Metro Detroit has actually not seen that much depopulation. The city itself has seen massive depopulation. But the problem is, Corey, there still aren't enough houses. Because they're just as expensive
Detroit,
here.
There's Bell, give me the number of how many vacant houses there are.
Corey, there's houses in Detroit, and 90% of them need to be fucking torn down. Bell's gone. We lost him. I don't know where he went. So it's like
25,000 initiative, like knowing you have to put in work to buy the property. You could take that $25,000. Tear down a shitty house on a property.
75,000 vacant houses in Detroit.
Yeah, that's
you could spend. Okay, surprising. Dan, you could take that $25,000 and use that to tear a fucking house down, and then you have a vacant lot that you could sell for 30. Like, there's things, you know what I mean? But like, I mean, obviously, that's exactly how a first-time buyer's home thing would do. But you understand what I mean? Like, if you're trying to move people into the city to generate tax revenue, an incentive like that is going to get people to move into a city or a state if the houses are there. In a state like California, in a state like New York, a state like Tennessee, a state like Texas, right? That's what I'm saying. A $25,000.
Well, no, the houses aren't there anywhere. They're not there anywhere. Yeah, okay. So you can buy a dilapidated home in Detroit that you can knock down, and with your $25,000 extra dollars, that $25,000 is barely going to build you a fucking deck on the outside of one of those shitty homes.
I was saying use the money to knock the house down and then sell the property. But what I'm saying is that would incentivize people to buy these houses because the supply in Detroit is way higher than the demand is.
I guess we're going to disagree on maybe we're going to disagree on the definition of supply, because I don't consider a vacant lot a supply.
It's a hell of a lot cheaper to build a house there than it is in California or New York. And if you had an extra $25K to put down and build a house there, like it's something that would incentivize someone.
I understand that, but it's relative, right?
It's very relative. That's why I'm saying it's a state
cost of living here. Actually, and this kind of leads into your next topic, because the cost of living here is lower, which means wages are lower.
No, that's fair. But what I'm saying is it's the law of supply and demand is ultimately what a free market is, right? in certain sectors an incentive to buy a house there, to buy property there that would generate revenue for the city, that would improve the housing value in the neighborhoods, which would rise property taxes, which would bring people to the city for foot traffic. This incentivized, or this type of incentivization program, or however you want to fucking say it, that sounded clunky as shit, could work in certain scenarios, but to try to enact it on a federal level would be absolutely disastrous.
I mean, I'm going to agree with the second part, not so much the first part, because no matter what,
because look at what's one of the root causes of why half those houses
through the
are
laws of
dilapidated.
economics. If through the laws of Austrian style economics, if you will, if you supplement demand, it is automatically going to drive up costs. Whether it's a vacant lot in Detroit or whether it's a $40 million house in Malibu, it doesn't matter. You can't supplement demand ever.
No. I mean, yeah.
Macroeconomic
scale. We're talking about aggregate demand, aggregate supply and things like that. And you're right on that point. But if that incentivized option outweighs the supply, or I'm sorry, how do I word this? If the demand is so low in a place like Detroit, for example, and the supply is so high, it created slumlords and it hurt the infrastructure. And then in tow, all of that came with that was the roads, the streets, the businesses, everything followed that trajectory because the houses just sat vacant. And those houses sat vacant and dilapidated, and then they became unbuyable. Now, this issue of offering $25,000 might not fix all of that, but it would curb it in the right direction, because then it would incentivize people to move back there to buy the properties, buy the houses, and that would, and ultimately it would raise houses values. That would be the ultimate goal anyways. Raising the property values, raising the house values, because then you're bringing more money back into the city. I'm saying that in certain scenarios, I think that a program like this would be a net gain, not a net loss.
I'm going to disagree. I think it would cause a short-term boom, as these things usually do when you try to supplement anything, essentially.
Even if you put a cap on it, and let's say only 10% of the houses were sold with this, that 10% would trickle, because then all of a sudden you have 70, like if there's 750,000 houses, like Bell said, or was it 75,000? Whatever one it was.
75,000.
75,000. So 7,500 houses sprinkled throughout the entire neighborhoods all of a sudden look nicer. It's going to make the houses that survived all of this value go up. People are going to be able to buy and sell those, and it's going to make people want to invest with money out of their pocket into that same neighborhood.
See, that's the whole thing is like 10% of 75,000 being 7,500 houses in the city of Detroit. I think you already have that. I think if you just run through any Detroit neighborhood, you're going to find a few.
Oh yeah, no, it's wild. It's wild. One street is beautiful. It looks like Oak Park, Royal Oak.
That are well taken
and then
care
the
of.
Next street is just dilapidated.
But I think if you're supplementing $25,000 to buy a home,
that's the arbitrary number. It could be anything. Michigan already has a program of 10,000.
Yeah, and
it's a loan. So, you have to pay it back when you sell the house.
Even so, you have taxpayer dollars.
Are you okay with that?
What?
It's a loan from the state that they give you, and then when you sell the house, if you sell it within a minimum amount of time.
I'm not okay with it, but only for this reason. I'm not okay with it in principle. I'm not okay with it because it's a loan from the state, and I don't trust the state.
I think it's a zero interest
anything. Either way, I don't trust the state with anything. So
right, but the asset's still in your name. That like if the state defaults on the loan, like you still got your house. Like, but if you default on that loan, and let's say the rest of your loan is like through a private equity firm, that state could probably come in and take it.
that opens up a whole brand new can of worms, because I don't think the state should have the ability to loan money in the first place. And there are a lot of good reasons for why I believe that. And many of those I think you would agree with. Dude, we should do a whole episode on this, because I think we could go back and forth on this for a long time. And honestly, I think it's an interesting conversation, because honestly, the biggest critiques I think you and I get for this show is that you and I agree too much.
This is a good one. I think like government programs and stuff on the most decentralized scale for a local community, especially if they vote for it and all of that stuff. There you go. $25,000, City of Detroit votes on it. And they all say that they want that. They want to bring more people, and they want to spend their tax dollars on it.
Fine. Only if that money's coming from the city of Detroit and not the state of Michigan.
Sure. Well, that's what I mean. As decentralized as possible. Or if the state of Michigan offered a program like this and it was a ballot initiative.
Well, now you're talking about the way I think that a government, if it's not going to be anarchy, should be set up from in the first place, which is a bottom-up
voting
system
on
instead
everything.
of a top-down.
Yeah,
a bottom-up system.
That's what I'm like, and I know you disagree with the semantics of it, but that's basically what I'm saying too. Is like a program like this, there are scenarios that it could work, but it should be decentralized and only used in those scenarios that it could work, like solar panels.
Corey, the more and more you talk, the more and more it's making it sound like what you're asking for is a privatized system. the more and more you decentralize, the more and more privatized it becomes.
Well, no, we're talking about local, state, federal governments and stuff like that. And what I'm saying is like this program, it sounds good on paper, but I feel like it would only work in a very local or like state type scenario, not a federal scenario.
Which makes it more and more privatized. The smaller and smaller the government gets, the more and more privatized it becomes.
Sure.
So you are in a quasi way making a libertarian argument, I think.
If the states or the the state or the local governments think it would work in their situation and the voters vote on it, I don't know,
dude. It's honestly, no. You know what? Honestly, it's the same thing that I've always said, and I think you've said as well. I think we've both said this multiple times. When it comes to something like socialism can work at a small community level.
Oh yeah.
But the wider you go, the less and less it works.
It's
and
literally the argument I've been making for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, but but the
oh, here you go agreeing with me again.
No. But
I'm
the
just
smaller
teasing.
and smaller of a group that you make socialism, the closer and closer you come to privatization. That's my argument.
Yeah.
So we're making the same argument, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a commune. There's no money here. He makes corn and he distributes to all of us, and he fur traps and makes bearskin fucking shoes, and he trades it for his corn, and I have chickens and I give them both eggs and he gives me. It's like we're a commune. It's like, no, it sounds like a free market society.
It sounds like a small free market society, doesn't it? Anyway, what else did we have? We had
let's try it on a scale for the whole country, and it's like no.
We had the blue collar wages deal. This kind of feeds right in, I think.
We didn't even finish this. It's whatever.
We really didn't, but we should have known that was going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't have any headlines. We didn't do. I don't have any
headlines.
You don't have any headlines. We can kill this as is. No, you know what? Let's do the blue collar. I have it in the fucking description. Let's do the blue collar workers thing. So you came across this piece about blue collar. The wages of blue collar workers are actually falling.
Yep,
like in a legitimate way.
I'm just gonna read it.
Okay, go for it. I'm here for you. I'm here for moral support.
Data from ZipRecruiter shows that wages employers are offering new hires in several blue-collar sectors of the labor market have declined this year from 2023, with retail wages falling the most by 55%, followed by agriculture, negative or 24.5%, manufacturing 17%, and transportation 13%. An average posted pay has risen since last year, but overall and in most job categories, or average posted pay has risen since last year, both overall and in most job categories, ZipRecruiter chief economist Julia Polak told Fox Business. But trends have diverged across different parts of the economy, with growth picking up in white-collar sectors and slowing down in blue-collar sectors. Polak says part of this is post-pandemic economic normalization and mean reversion, but part of it is due to the steep hiring slowdown that has taken place in the private sector outside of the healthcare industry. Several other indicators also show that competition for talent eased, the economist said. For example, the spread between wage growth for job switchers and job stayers was as large as 2.8% points in August 2022, but has since fallen to 0.5% points, according to Atlanta's Fed wage growth tracker. ZipRecruiter's latest new hires survey show that new hires are not only getting smaller raises, but also fewer signing bonuses, fewer attractive counteroffers, and fewer inbound queries from recruiters, Polak noted. Darren Carr, the founder of Carr Talent Acquisition, says his firm has noticed the trend too. In the last weeks and months, we've seen offers and wages drop in many thousands of job postings, Carr told Fox Business, saying he has seen the declines for both white-collar and blue-collar positions and across all sizes of companies. Carr said he's also noticed a trend of employers starting to only hire new people in cities or regions where lower costs of living will correlate with reduced income. And noted there is a movement toward eliminating positions filed in recent years which have higher salaries, replacing them with cheaper 1099 contractors. He said employers have the upper hand again in many cases. People are less picky now about their work than they were 6 months ago, as many are scared, Carr said in his own assessment of this situation. They need a job or a better job to pay the increasing bills, and they don't have the negotiating leverage they did a while ago.
So it kind of sounds like a general market fluctuation. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. But wages are down. Liberty Twitcher said the same thing. He said,
"Oh shit!"
So the labor market fluctuates like all markets. Oh man, he missed our whole tirade
well,
there.
No,
a little bit ago.
what's so interesting about that is like you'll have the I don't even know what to call them anymore. I don't know whether to call them lefties. I don't know whether to call
Harris
them.
will increase those wages. She'll mandate it. That'll fix it.
I don't know whether to call them lefties. I don't know whether to call them Democrat. I don't know what to call them anymore. But it'll always be this idea that it's the big man trying to keep wages down. It's like, yeah, to a degree, that's true, right? A corporation, it's a fucking business transaction when you get a wage, right? It's a business transaction when you get hired for a job. You go in for an interview, they say, this is what we're willing to offer. And you, as an employee, can go, I'll take that salary. Or, hey, let's negotiate. Maybe you give me an extra 2 weeks vacation, whatever it is. Like you negotiate. It's a business transaction. I'm offering you my time and my labor for your money to produce the product or service that you need.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. It's just interesting. This was more or less just a thumb on the pulse of the recent economy. Like, yeah, for a minute there, people were all trying to hire. Everyone was sitting at home because everyone was still kind of scared of COVID. So there was less workers than the market demanded. But now we're starting to see a market slowdown.
It's so interesting.
Inflation is high.
We're still sitting here at the beginning of this episode, and I talked about the grocery industry and about how they still can't find help.
But it's out there. Like a lot of
it's out there.
It's just concentrated in inner cities and stuff like that. When it comes to, like, you know what I mean? It's just a bigger pool to pull from. A bigger city has more talent than a smaller city. Look at your graduating class and look at my graduating class.
Don't be a dick.
What? My graduating. What? I don't know. If I was being a dick, I'd be like, my graduating class was bigger than your graduating class.
And you pull out your
it's a dick swinging. Yeah, like it's a dick swinging contest. Like,
what a
it wasn't a
stupid
flex.
thing
It wasn't a flex. I'm just saying,
stupid thing to compete over.
Wow, and my football team did better than your football team. Oh, wow, my inner city has more job opportunities than your rural community of 3,000 people.
So Liberty said, more than ever, employers are fed up with whiny young employees. I think there's a little bit of truth to that. I don't know that that's exactly what it is. Because in a weird way, I feel like, I don't know, at least just what I see out there, I feel like the quote unquote snowflakes, right? The sort of right wing way to shit on young people is it's dying down. It's just what I see. It's not as much a problem.
Young people.
Didn't we talk about? Was it my prediction for the end of 2023 that we were going to see the beginning of the end of wokeness?
Yeah,
like this kind of applies to that, and it's definitely happening. It's definitely happening. It's definitely a situation where you're starting to see. I don't really know how to explain it, but you're starting to see more of like the way that I came into the job market was like, if I don't like something that an employer is doing, if I don't feel like I'm being paid enough, or I don't feel like I'm just, because it wasn't always about money for me. I've worked a couple of jobs where I was being paid well, but I was fucking miserable. I would leave based on either one of those things. And it's really more a matter of getting as close to a job where you're happy as you can be. Because like the job that I work now, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. So I stay. And I feel like you feel kind of the same way.
Yeah, that's why I'm where I'm at. But
don't love it, don't hate it. But yeah,
I'm working on getting a degree. This might piss off our libertarian listeners. I'm using the fucking government to pay for it because they offered a free program and I wasn't going to turn it down.
So you're going to quote unquote default on that loan and I'm going to have to pay for your fucking...
No, it's a grant. We all still have to pay for it. It was federal dollars.
But so listen,
after
you and I,
COVID,
you and I, the listener, are paying for this Marxist education that Corey Walsh is getting over here.
So what I'm supposed to do, just not like, so you're telling me to be a bad capitalist and leave money on the table?
If it's coming from the federal government, yeah.
Okay, well then tell all the most successful people in this goddamn country the same thing. Don't be coming at me for that bullshit.
Hey, the most successful people in this goddamn country dropped out of college. Fucking became entrepreneurs.
No, they went to monastery schools as children and then dropped out of college and became some of the most successful people in the world.
So you're telling me cults are good?
I know. I love how you think Montessori colleges are called, or Montessori schools are called.
That is a running joke on this show. Montessori schools are a cult. I'm convinced.
We have to stay woke.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, no, I risked my life during COVID. Damn, I had to carry around papers to drive out of all my jobs.
I had to carry around papers.
I did. I had to show my papers.
You had to carry around papers to get to the communist checkpoints.
I'm an essential worker. Heroes work here. You know how much of a bitch it was to wear a stupid fucking mask with this beard just to find out
really
3
dumb?
years later that everyone's like, hey, these things probably don't work. And
I
then
didn't have to
you
carry
said that
around.
you
I
were
didn't have to carry around.
That was a term.
Dude, I was a traveling sales rep and I didn't have to carry a single paper.
Then your work didn't give you a paper?
No.
My work did. They're like, hey, we heard you might need this. And it was just like an essential worker for ND Industries.
And I traveled everywhere. I saw fucking coyotes running across I-75 just north of Detroit. That's how fucking dead the roads were during the height of lockdowns.
Yep.
Coyotes in the city. Yep. Whatever will we do?
I think it's a very rude introduction.
And then after that, I got a letter or an email from the government. and it was like, hey, you were a frontline worker. You want some free college? And I was just like, knowing it's not free, but I'm not gonna like, fuck, I'll sign up for that.
So we're all.
I'm not.
paying for it.
What was I supposed to do, Dan? Just out of principle, not better my life.
Yes. Yes. Be a good libertarian and stop being a dick. And
Dude,
making me
I'm
pay.
little L libertarian. I told you this.
No, you owe me. Do you have any idea how many beers you owe me for paying for your college?
I'll buy
Like
you a beer.
4. Like 4 beers. You
At
owe me like
least.
4 beers.
At least. Maybe
So
one.
when we go next time we go play disc golf, I need 4 beers and then we're even.
I'll give you a Miller Lite.
But then you got to give like 4 beers to like everybody in the state of Michigan.
Well,
Bell, this man owes you 4 beers for paying for his college.
At least.
I pay for your fucking roads.
And I pay for your fucking roads. See, this is
Yeah.
how they get us. They get us at each other's throats. And then we don't argue about libertarian shit anymore.
You guys don't
Anyway.
understand. I risked my life
You didn't risk anything.
going to work as an essential worker to keep you two alive. In case you need it.
You make glue.
No, we don't make it. We bottle it.
You were out killing.
You bottle
everyone's brand.
glue.
Shut up.
And adhesives and anaerobics, MMAs, fasteners,
killing-
epoxies, EPOM.
I honestly, I thought Corey was gonna have this joke down where he said, "Yeah, all the easier for you to sniff."
Yeah.
He made me make the glue.
Dude. Yeah. Do you know how hard it is to slaughter horses? They have names,
do it.
Dan.
I bet you I could do it.
They have names.
I got a baseball bat.
Dude, you know how long it would take you to kill a horse with a baseball bat?
I mean, not if you hit it in the right spot.
Dude, I promise you, you ain't no Ken Griffey Jr. It would not be one swing home run no matter what.
I
Even
bet you
were
if I hit,
Negan or whatever that guy is from The Walking Dead, you put a 3-inch nail in a horse's head, it's gonna survive.
I bet you if I hit that motherfucker between the eyes, he gonna go down.
Either he is or you are, because he's gonna be.
I'm
pissed.
not gonna be standing behind it. What's a horse gonna do if I'm standing in front of it?
Dan.
I have a better chance of hitting it in the nuts.
Yeah. Dan's gonna
Dude,
tell
we
us
are gonna-
next
we
he
are
thinks
gonna-
that he
no,
could have a
dude.
fight with a bear.
We are gonna get reported by PETA. Is what's about to happen. So we need to watch our asses. Even
That'd
though
be
they
good.
kill more
That's-
animals than anybody else. Fuck you, PETA.
I know. But yeah, anyways, the
Tell the
government,
people they can find us.
through no choice of my own, offered me free college, and I took it.
That's not telling the
And now
people
you
where they
owe
can
us
find
beer.
us.
And look at me
I
now.
can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know?
On social media and podcast. LiveSortiveShow.com. We can be found at LiveSortive on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter, LiveSortivePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at LiveSortive Podcast, and you can reach out directly at LiveSortivePod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
We just need to take a deep breath.
Yeah, why?
Rebel the Bodysnatcher
Who's being
on the
in
ones and twos.
because you think all of a sudden I'm a commie?
He, as always, has been Corey Walsh.
He's-
Bright Nice is in the house, right at the end of the show.
Hey, bud.
And he's fucking Dan Griffin.
This has been our last episode here at Libservative. Intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. And until never, we are out of here.